for the commerce, the commerce, they call it the commercial division. I was the commercial division manager of finance, and there were 2 Chinese that was working in my department. Well, one in mine and one in that department. And I noticed every time we give them a problem to solve, and I compare what they do versus what others do when I give them a problem to solve, most people, or almost everybody from different countries, because I work with a lot of different countries in that office. You know, you had Bangladesh, you had India, you had Filipino, you have Jamaicans, Caucasians there. All the other people, they gave them a problem. The first thing they did was to try to solve. They started to try to solve the problem instantly. They started to look for a solution. Yeah. The Chinese, on the other hand, and I observed this by watching them over and over. The Chinese, the approach they took to solving the problem was they spent much of the time first understanding the problem. A lot of time. So let's say, you know, Team A, which is the non-Chinese, they would spend the first hour trying to solve the problem. And then whatever solution they come up with, they'll spend the next 3 hours trying to fix it because it may not be the best solution. So now they find out, oh, well, that didn't work, and so they have issues now to fix. The Chinese now do it the other way around. They spend the first hour, so to speak, or hour and a half or 2 hours, just studying the problem carefully, so they understand the problem fully. They really dissect it and okay, so this is indeed the problem. Sometimes that results in them finding the real problem, that what they were told isn't really the problem. Because of their analysis, they find the real problem. And then what happened is, they then solve the real problem in a much shorter time than the other team is spending on trying to fix the fact that they have found the wrong problem and solved the wrong problem. And so as I studied my Chinese employees, I realized that is a better method. First, study the problem carefully, really understand it, and then go for the solution. And that has changed my success rate in everything I do tremendously because of that approach. So when I meet a problem now, I focus on understanding the problem. So much so that I might find that what I thought was the problem initially is not the problem. And on drilling down properly, I find the real problem. And then when I know craft a solution, it is more effective because I'm solving not what appears to be the problem, but what is actually the problem. Yeah. And so I spend a lot of time sharing with you the problem in the hope that you will embrace this philosophy, that it is wiser to understand the problem first before you start to spout solutions, because that's more efficient and more effective. Yeah. All right. And what is this? All right. So I have some persons here now who are just ridiculous and just writing the same thing over and over. If you were to become predominate, how would you elect the Speaker of the House if the rule is kept? Okay, the Speaker of the House is really meant to be, or should be, a chairman, right, or a chairperson who is facilitating the discussion, the debate, and so on. So the first thing you have to do is to make sure that you're not selecting somebody who has a vested interest in either side of the debate. So in the current system, you have two sides. You have created a government where it is government versus opposition. A very foolish system. I learned a lot of lessons from the corporate world. I sat on a number of boards and still do on some. When you have a company, you don't put a board together and then split the board in two and say half of the board is for the government of the company and another half or whatever percentage is to oppose. That's a very foolish approach because what you have done, you have created polar opposites and you have sowed the seeds of disunity and distrust, and you have eliminated the inspiration for collaboration. So the UIC model of governance removes that by removing partisan politics, and the way we do that is by having a 100% publicly funded system of governance. That means a person does not need to belong to a party in order to be elected, nor does a party have the power to control an elected representative, because that party doesn't have any control over them by virtue of funding. Yeah. Similarly, the elected person is not beholden to any private citizen or special interest group outside by virtue of campaign funding either. So we have created a model that is truly a Congress. So when you come inside of it, you come in there representing your constituents and your constituents only. You're not representing a party unless you want to identify, that's quite fine. You're not representing a special interest group because you're not funded by them, unless you're doing it behind the scenes, which would then be illegal, and then you'd get sanctioned for that. Once you have done that, the person you're now going to have chairing the session, you want to make sure that person is not a part of any of the groups that you're using to chair the session. So for example, you would not choose a senator to chair the Senate. You would not choose a member like one of the 14. In our system, you'd have 14 elected senators, one from each of the parish. You don't make any one of them the chair, because then you'll be giving one of them more power than the others. And they're all equal because they're representing 14 parishes in our system. The same for the representatives. You would not make any one of the representatives also the chair, because that would be counterproductive. Yeah. So in our system, you will simply have an elected person. For example, you may appoint a member of the judiciary to chair Senate meetings to ensure due process is followed. And you may have a member of the executive branch chairing the House sitting to facilitate the debate and discussion and so on. So we can look into that. All right, to install a third party in Jamaica, politics will take for stability. Does the UIC have that? What does that mean? What does financial stability mean, Sydney? The UIC or any third party, it's very simple. You need to have what it takes to win in the system that you're in. In the system of Jamaica that is today, the system we have today, you need money to be able to compete with the too heavily funded PSOJ-controlled political parties. So if you're asking if we have the money to compete, the same amount of money, no, we don't. What we have is a product that we're offering the Jamaican people. And so if the Jamaican people have the ability to understand the problem that they're faced with and want the solution that the UIC is offering, and enough need to reach the people. All right. What else do we have here? Do you think Jamaica is under dictatorship? No. Yes. Jamaica is under the dictatorship of the PSOJ oligarchs. You don't see them on TV normally because they're not the puppets, they're the puppet masters. So Jamaica has two sets of puppet masters. We have the global puppet masters, the ones who can tell us that we should inject our nation, or we should make our nation embrace certain sexual practices or gender ideas, and that's one set, and they control our curriculum, they control our laws, the overarching laws and so on. That's the global elites that our leaders have paid obeisance to because they want the grants and loans from them, and they don't want to ruffle any feathers, so they make sure that they are obedient to that group. Then locally, they have the PSOJ oligarchs who funds their campaign, and they want to make sure that that continues, so they do what that special interest group tells them to do. We, the people, the majority now, are insignificant. We are only needed to authenticate them. So they come to us every 4 to 5 years. They marginalize 60 to 70% of us by getting us to just give up on politics, and then they target the lower educated group, the poor group, and they manipulate those now with a few trinkets, 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 t-shirts, drinks, entertainment, excitement, and bring those out to vote, and that authenticates them to borrow more money from their colonial masters and to continue the relationship with their local PSOJ oligarchy masters, and they themselves get to enrich themselves from that enterprise, and the game continues. So I hope I've given you enough to think about. The essence of this particular live was to ensure you know that the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister have lied to you, that they have not increased taxes since taking office in 2016. That's a bold-faced lie that will work. Many people will believe them because those people are uninformed, misinformed, or lack the capacity to understand even if they're told what is happening. So I've explained to you that since 2018 to now, your taxes by virtue of inflation have gone up by over 42%. That means a massive decline in your purchasing power. That means you are poorer now than you were in 2016. So the prosperity train left you, while you have allowed them to become more prosperous in the end. So the Prime Minister and those closest to him and his PSOJ buddies who run the big corporations who pass on all of this increased taxation to you are happy. Their banks, their big corporations are richer. They have made billions more. So they have seen the prosperity that was promised. You, on the other hand, whether you want to accept it or not, you have seen a decline in your purchasing power, and your life has been made harder by the tax increases of this government through inflation. And please understand that it's not just this particular government that has done it. It is all the governments that you have had since 1944, when we elected foolishly, ignorantly, the first JLP government in 1944, and when we subsequently elected PNP governments and given them the reins, thinking that they were going to be different. All that we have done is to simply pick one of the two sides that the PSOJ oligarchs have given to us, that the colonial masters facilitated for us. They want us to keep voting for them while thinking that when we vote for one or the other, we are in fact creating some kind of change. It's their way of sedating us, making us feel like we have some measure of control. There are many of you who are waiting eagerly for the next general election, where you will go out and you will vote PNP in order to get rid of Andrew, and you'll feel good about it, only to realize within the next 3 to 4 years that it made no difference. Yes, you're going to feel good for the moment because you have now come to hate Andrew in the same way that you were excited about him when he was the new kid on the block, when he was the young people time now. Just like you might have been around and you were excited to elect P.J. Patterson when it was black man time now. Or you were excited to elect Portia Simpson because it was woman time now. Or you were among those who were saying, my leader Barnia, when it was Manley versus Siaga. Or you're one of those who said, Pupa Eddie our leader. Or you were one of those who said, oh my gosh, Bruce Golding is so bright and intelligent, he's going to make a good prime minister. You were fooled. You were tricked. It doesn't matter which face they put on these two parties. The underlying fact remains that those two parties do not work for you. They work for the PSOJ oligarchs and for their colonial masters. Yeah? So at the end of the day, know this, you have been lied to again when they tell you no new taxes. As I explained to you earlier on, and I'll tell you again in brief, in 2018 they raised your taxes by 3.74%. In 2019 they raised your taxes by 3.91%. In 2020, they raised your taxes by 5.23%. In 2020, they raised your taxes by 5.86%. In 2022, by 10.35%. And in 2023, by 7.5%. If you add up all of those increases, that's over 32% increase in taxes. And when you factor in their 15% GCT, that brings you to approximately 42% increase in taxes. So you have been duped. You have been tricked again. For 80 long years, you have been tricked, whether it's PNP or JLP, green or orange, you have been tricked, duped, robbed in plain sight. And so, if you want change, your only hope, your only alternative is for you to join hands with me in the UIC. Let us take back our country. Let us do the impossible. They're certain we can't do it, you know. They know we can't do it. They're confident. They have locked off the UIC from radio and television and newspaper for the most part. Yeah. And they know that once we're out of sight, we're out of mind. And they know that you're not going to have confidence in us if you don't see us on TV and radio and newspaper. And so they have trained you that when you see people on TV and them in a newspaper and on radio, and they want to talk to the people that are important, the Dean Jackson Millers of the world, or Andrea Williams, or whoever it is, you know, if they're not talking to those people, they don't know what they're talking about, and have no sense. And they have their talking heads, and they have their people that are, sprinting around that you listen to. And they said, these are the people you must listen to. And so if they're not saying UIC, then it's not UIC. But I'm telling you, it is UIC. The UIC is the only political party in Jamaica that fully understands the importance of protecting your individual sovereignty, of giving you the right to your life, liberty, and property, ensuring that your land that was stolen from your ancestors is returned to you, of giving you a system of governance with proper checks and balances that is non-partisan, but rather focused on policy instead of party. The UIC is the only political party that Jamaica has ever seen that truly understands the problem and has the cure for that problem. We're the first truly non-colonial party. All the others, third party or not, they're still locked in the colonial mindset. They have no idea what good governance is and how to create the same. They're simply trying to take power to do what the other two parties have done. The UIC is not here to simply take power to do what they have done. The UIC is here to take power and return that power to you, the people, where it truly belongs. And the only way for the power to be in your hands is if you have a constitution and a system of governance that protects your personal sovereignty from no matter who the people elect. That's what you want. Good governance is not about the face that sits in front of you as head of your government. Good governance is about a system that protects you from the worst among us and will allow the best among us to do the best job for you. It's not about personalities or persons. It's about systems and structures and laws. And if there are objective laws and there are policies designed to protect your sovereignty and give you an enabling environment that does not allow foreign powers to have an advantage over you, then you have a system that's working for the people. That's what the UIC will bring to Jamaica. That's what we want for you. That's what we want for all of us. But it can't happen unless we, the people, rise up. We have to, once again, reignite the spirit of Nani, of Sam Sharp, of Bogle, of Garvey, of Gordon. We have to reignite the spirit that allows us to say, enough is enough, and we're willing, poor as we are, dunce as we may have been, challenged as we are determined to rise up and take back our country. Why should you trust me? You don't need to trust me. Trust what you hear. Trust what you see. Trust what you can test. If what I'm saying to you is foolishness, then you should say, no, that's foolishness. But if I'm telling you the truth, it's not me you're going to trust. You're going to trust the truth. And together we join hand in truth. And if you work from there, then there's nothing to worry about. Because I am not going to be able to do anything that you do not empower me to do. You're the one that empowered them to do what they're doing. First, our parents who were uninformed allowed them to take over, and we have allowed them to continue. So the moment we decide to say enough is enough, then enough is enough. It will be over at that point, So we can do this. Of course, I'm trying to persuade you. That's life. In life, that's all we can do. All of us have to try to persuade somebody. So when you go for a job interview, all the candidates are trying to persuade the employer. And the employer now has to decide which of them is the best one to hire. You have 80 years of data now on these two. If you're foolish enough to not use that data to your advantage, then you deserve a bad employee. So if you are in a company where you're hiring people and you have some internal people who you have known for 20 years, you've seen their bad performance, and they come to you and say, give me the job, no boss, and you have somebody else who you have never hired before, and you assess them based on the information you have, and they appear to be better than these, what you're going to say? Why, no, sir, I better stick with the evil one we know. That is foolish. That is very, very foolish. The least you can do is to give yourself a fighting chance by deciding that, you know what, I've seen these guys for 80 years now, I've seen what they can do, and it's not good, let me try this one. It's really up to you. I mean, that's how I would live my life. If you live your life that way, then, that's fine. But that's what I do, if I were you. What are your qualifications to become the Prime Minister? Let's do it another way around. What's the qualification of the current Prime Minister? So the current Prime Minister went to university, has a undergraduate degree, and went straight from college to being an MP. He was hired by Mr. Siaga first in a charity, then to work for Mr. Siaga in his office, and then shortly after, he has spent all of his life now as an MP, and then education minister, and then Prime Minister. So that's his qualification to be Prime Minister. What was Portia Simpson's? What was Bruce Golding's? Look at it. So for me, my qualification as a person, not to be Prime Minister, but as a person, like any one of these individuals, I went to school like everybody else, passed 13 subjects, studied engineering at UTech, then studied accounting science and management in Calgary University, earned a degree in accounting science, and then a CPA designation and CGA designation, and the last 35 years or 30 years I've spent working in different capacities as VP of Finance for a school board in Toronto, as Director of Finance in a government in Canada, as a financial controller in Jamaica, as chairman of the board for one of the largest investment funds in the Netherlands, financial controller on non-profit entities in Canada and Jamaica, founder of the UIC, founder of Yes Jamaica. And I've bought and sold a few businesses. I'm an entrepreneur. So that's it. I mean, it's really, if you look at all the prime ministers we've had, I mean, probably the least qualified of them would have been Portia Simpson Miller and Andrew Onus, in terms of their actual qualifications and competences. Those have been the two lowest. Bustamante would have been one, too. You've had, scholars like Norman Manley. You have had big lawyers like P.J. Patterson. You have had, intellectual giants like Bruce Golding and so on. At the end of the day, look at the results. For me, I prefer to focus on results. What is the result? 8.5 years of P.J. Patterson and Dr. Amar Davis. Dr. Amar Davis gave us one of the biggest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich in Jamaica, the destruction of our banking sector, and the wiping out of some 40,000 entrepreneurs in Jamaica. So maybe the question, think about it. Yeah. So, looking for the questions here. All right, so I think that's it for tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Much appreciated. Have yourself a good night, and check out